Hello, everybody. We're back. This is a pickup of Speak of the Devil. We've now posted 35 episodes of the edited versions of Speak of the Devil. I did, I think it was 35 weeks in a row sometime back. That was all done up at the Deer Lodge in Ojai, California. We're shooting this in Ventura. And each week, I'm going to come up with a couple of videos. I'll be answering questions and doing little highlight stories. But right now, my lovely wife, Beverly, is going to off screen read last week's questions. We just picked out a few. Send me some good questions in the comments and, I'll answer them for you. Okay, so here we go. What's number one, Bev?
Well, it's not a happy guy. Charles Johnson, 2013. It's sad the way you turned out. You badmouthed my friend. I know you never heard of me. Sonny was my friend. Why don't you shut your mouth? Boy, Sonny isn't here to rebut the things you say. Let him read in peace. This is the only time I will say it.
Well, I don't know whether to take that as a threat. I'm not quite sure, but I'll tell you. What's his name, Beverly?
Charles Johnson.
Charles Johnson. I want you to know that everything I've said about Sonny since my departure from the club in 2011 until now, I've said to his face back then. Probably said it to his face when I was an active member. Him and I had a lot of issues. Uh, you know, I don't know who you are, and you must not have been that good friends because Sonny never mentioned you in any of our arguments, discussions, or whatnot. But your last comment, you know, I want to tell you if you're going to make public statements like that, I don't think they're appropriate. If you have something to say to me from this point on, I'd appreciate it if you had your mother get a hold of me. All right, next question.
God. Kirk Sidewood. Did members like Moldy Marvin, who belonged to both the Hells Angels and AB, have conflicts?
Well,
That's a hard question.
well,
With himself or
this is what I'm going to say. Uh, the I think I know what he's referring to. Perhaps the death of Irish that was
yeah.
attributed to the AB. But I'll tell you when I joined the Hells Angels, we had strict rules. You could not belong to any other organization, and we haven't even had a big controversy in the officers' meeting about the members that belong to the MMA. And it was decided since we, the Hells Angels, own the MMA, people could belong to it. They could have dual membership. You could be a member of the Hells Angels and a member of the MMA, Modified Motorcycle Association. What you have to understand is, you know, I think that Moldy Marvin could have had a close relationship with a lot of the AB guys. I know that Big Al had a very close relationship with the Emma, Mike Eisen, who he introduced me to, and I became good friends with. But as far as dual memberships, Hell's Angels were the priority, and they came first. I know that, and I can't remember if Marvin was a member, then he quit, and then he came back. He may have gone to prison when he was getting ready and may have been a prospect, may have not been a full patch member again yet. When he was getting ready to go to prison in, I think it was the 70s, him and Russell Bea beat a guy to death, and they both wound up going to prison. I write about it in my new book, but it was all over a handshake. It was kind of a crazy thing, and it kind of alludes to the fact of Russell Bea being a real Oakland heavyweight, and I kind of break it down in that chapter. But I don't think Marvin was conflicted. I never heard him talk about the AB. I know that he was real upset about the situation with Irish, and I know he was a full-on, complete, dedicated Hell's Angel. All right, next one, Bev.
Martin Edwards writes, did little Georgie prospect?
Little Georgie did prospect. He probably had the longest hang around period in the club's history. He hung around from his age of 3 to 18 when he became a member. He was voted in the club, and at that particular point in time, he was the youngest member in the world.
And who recommended him for membership, if I remember correctly?
Say that again, Bev.
Who was it that recommended him for membership?
Well,
if I remember correctly,
his uncle Sonny Barger was one of his biggest supporters for little George to get in the club. I mean,
so there were good times and bad times.
Yeah, and Sonny and Georgie had a relationship. I mean, he called him Uncle Sonny. I mean, Georgie met him when he was 3, and when Sonny spoke up to him at the meeting in the mid '90s, Sonny and I had been odds. He just got back from prison, but he backed him 100%, and helped bring a lot of youngsters into the club at that particular point in time. Next one.
We got something from Vampire Squid. I think it refers to last week's. It's the only thing these guys are rebelling from is sobriety and personal hygiene.
Well, Vampire Squid, I don't know.
When you quit the club.
I don't know what that's all about. Obviously, you haven't known a lot of Hell's Angels because Hell's Angels certainly have their moments of non-sobriety, but they also have their lucid moments and their a lot of responsibilities that goes along with membership. And Hell's Angels are some of the cleanest guys I've been around. Perhaps maybe back in the '60s and '70s, you may have had some situations like that. I think Animal was the one of the biggest offenders. He used to take a annual bath at Bass Lake, whether he needed it or not. Anyways, next question.
Robert Alexander 9365. I remember all the street gangs in Ventura. Many joined the Hells Angels. In the 90s, the Hells Angels were everywhere in Ventura.
Yeah, that's true. The west end of town, where there was the clubhouse, and then I lived around the corner. David Ortega lived across, kind of from the clubhouse. We had the tattoo shop, and then above the tattoo shop was my daughter's law office, and the place was just saturated with club members. And I mean, you couldn't come to town and not see Hells Angels riding their motorcycles. It was a great time, a lot of fun, a lot of great memories. But that time came and went. Next one.
Okay, this is the last one. It's from Mike Dundee. Anything on the anything you can say on the Devil's Disciples or El Fosteros?
Well, I'll talk about both of them just a little bit. Thank you very much, Bev.
You're welcome.
My lovely wife is now
snuggled up with the dog,
stepping out of the video. So, the Devil's Disciples were up in the northern end of the valley, and anybody that's read my book, Exile on Front Street, there's a section in it when we corner this guy that's got a fake Hell's Angel patch. And when I do corner him, I'm waiting for him in the back of his car. I'm on the floorboard of the car with a blanket over me. And when he comes into the car, I kind of throw down on him and tell him to keep his hands on the wheels, the steering wheel. There's a guy with him sitting to his right, and tell him to put his hands on the dash. I've come to find out, as the day progressed, as we're driving him out to the desert, trying to recover this bogus patch, he was a Devil's Disciple. He didn't know anything about the patch, and at the end of the day, I determined he was telling the truth, and him and I kind of struck up a deal. I took his license, so I knew who he was, and he basically took an oath never to talk about the incident. I never heard any scuttlebutt about it, and I think those guys were a smaller club, but they were a bunch of stand-up guys. I know the Slaves never had no issues with them. I never heard a bad word about them. They were just in a different little clique and a different area of the valley. I'm speaking of San Fernando Valley. Now, the El Fosteros, that was a club that Tiny and Tom Fugel started. Tiny from San Fernando Valley was a Satan slave. He went back east, wanted to open a slave charter, came back out. Him and Tom Fugel were going to open the Satan Slave Charter, and they got shot down. The slaves said, "No, let's just keep it one charter here in San Fernando Valley, the Satan slaves. You guys started another charter." They had the blessing of the slaves, and that was the birth of the El Fosteros. Now, in that club, Dave Mann became a member, and I actually called Keith Ball this morning to talk about what had happened because there's a couple of rumors that went around. Dave started doing that artwork poster series, and it was for Ed Big Daddy Roth. I think he did somewhere close to 30 in that series. But if you can get your hands on one of those early Big Daddy Roth posters, I think they say Roth 66 or something, you can find Dave Mann's signature or autograph, whatever you want to call it, hidden somewhere in the poster on the bike somewhere. Uh, he started picking up a lot of flack for these posters. People felt he was revealing too much about the outlaw scene. A lot of the guys took offense, and he left the El Fosteros on bad terms. Like I said, I talked to Keith this morning. I know he left, and there was a rumor. Now, this is just a rumor. I remember it very vividly in my mind. I didn't ask Keith specifically because I didn't want to put any thoughts in his head. I asked him, what was it all about? He kind of thought it was revealing too much. Keith didn't say this to me. This is something I remember, and I may have gotten it through the Satan slaves, but there was talk. Some people were talking about we want to cut Dave Mann's hand off because he was revealing all these secrets. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I know that Dave became part of that whole Easy Rider magazine thing. I know at one time he presented me with the whole series of posters. Uh, Somehow, over the years, he resolved his problem. By the late 70s, his problem was resolved, as I remember correctly. Uh, like I said, he got really deep in with Easy Rider, became part of that crew. I will say this: Tiny from SFV always had Dave Mann's back, and he helped me develop a close relationship with Dave Mann. I've got some personal experiences with Dave. I petitioned him to do a new poster for the movie Hell's Angels Forever. Never really got off the ground. There was a lot of controversy about who was going to be in charge, who owned the movie. Sandy had left the club. The movie was really Sandy's project, but now it belonged to the club. It was a club movie and it belonged to the club. And we sort of abandoned that. I wound up with that Dave Mann poster. I sell it, copies of it. It's called Busting Out. Uh, that was one of the posters I petitioned him to do. I wound up paying for it out of my pocket because everybody was arguing in the club of who was going to pick up the bill on it. So I picked up the bill. I own the painting. But Dave also did. I want to show you this. He also did another painting. You can see it here. It's a fight, and this fight took place down in Ventura on the beach. And here was another actual incident that happened. Most of the posters you'll see it that Dave did in the early days had to do with some sort of event in the outlaw bike world. This was a fight that took place. The non one percenter clubs decided to throw a party in Ventura down on the beach. Question marks found out about it. Dave Ortega, grabbed a handful of question marks. I was just an independent writer, but I sat in on the meetings with him, went everywhere with him. I tagged along with him down the beach, and we all wound up being told to leave by these non one percenter clubs, and we weren't going to leave, and it turned into a big chaotic scene the whole night. Fights, and the fights would stop, and then the fights would start again. I've talked about it before. Uh, Hercules from the Molochs and David Ortega fought on and off all night long, and it was quite a sight to see. But that poster came out of it. The second poster Dave Mann did for me was the Olympic torch. And these are originals. They're not part of the posters that we ran off. These are actual original paintings or whatever you want to call them. This depicted the torch run, and we were selling those to the public for a while, and then they stopped. And you know, now I own the possession of them. They're mine, and you know, I sell them from time to time. People write me and they want them. I was always on good terms with Dave. I liked him. I think that his art was incredible. I think he was ahead of his time, or maybe behind the times, because all of my favorite posters of his are from the '60s and '70s. That poster from the Olympics was 1986, I think. He did it when I was in prison when I picked up that uh, beef where I got framed by the feds. But like Dave did resolve his issues. Dave was on good terms. You know, probably the last 20 years of his life, 25 years of his life. I know there's still a lot of posters floating around from Easy Rider magazine. You get your hands on an original. They're starting to be worth some money. I think some of them are selling $25,000, $30,000. I think that someday they'll be very, very valuable. So that's kind of it on Dave Mann. You want to hear about somebody? Write me on YouTube. Uh, we'll be doing these once, twice a week. These little question and answers, and I'm going to do a little highlight on somebody. I don't know who I'll do next. I got a couple of ideas. But I also wanted to make a comment. After I talked about the Nom Angels, several people wrote me and said, "Hey, that Nom Angels clips are still out there floating around with the whole complete Hell's Angel patch in them." And that's what happens if you don't stay on top of these trademarks. Like, I've been out of the club a while. That's the things that I used to do all the time. If you don't stay on top of these trademarks, you put your trademark in jeopardy, because what will happen is you go into court, and whoever infringes on your trademark will say, well, they aren't protecting it vigorously, and they try to grandfather stuff in as fair use, and it's all kinds of complicated. I'm not a trademark lawyer. It's very complicated and convoluted. But for the people that wrote me and said, hey, there's still some floating around, yes, there are, and they need to, somebody needs to get on that and find out who's in control. It's probably Concord Films still, and they need to shut them down. But anyways, that's it for this week. I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings, but if I did, such is life, okay? So listen, I really appreciate you guys coming to YouTube. Appreciate the comments, and I'd appreciate if you would follow. All right, that's it. Talk to you guys next time. Take care.